This message is so important. I'm going to read it to you first, and then we're going to talk about it, especially the addiction to cycles of drama and pain. Soul Mover says, a lot of adults have never known peace because they've been in survival mode since before they turn 10. They don't know what it's like to experience a calm environment because all they've known is chaos. And where there isn't chaos, they create it for themselves mentally, preparing for the worst to happen. When you've spent a majority part of your life drowning in an imbalanced nervous system and trauma, it can be difficult to come up for air, to experience peace and relief when it's brought you. Even when someone is in a room of silence, their thoughts are still the loudest. This is so important because people who have experienced childhood trauma, people who had parents that were emotionally dysregulated or abusive or didn't fully attach to them in a secure way or love them or show up for their emotions and their needs, who didn't teach them the proper ways to self-regulate or self-soothe, who were neglected, ignored, the whole gambit of things that could have happened to you. A lot of times what happens is people then become addicted to what they know love to be, which is this very inconsistent roller coaster of emotion. Think about the friends in your life who every single time you talk to them, it's like it's a cycle of drama. Now, I do want to acknowledge that there are a lot of systemic things that cause, that are like outside of personal responsibility. And I'm definitely not like an individualistic, like it's your fault, the things that I would never be that way. I think that no one should ever have had to suffer anything that happened to them. And there are so many systemic things, systemic discriminations, economic inequalities, all sorts of things that just make things that much worse. And when I say people that are addicted to the cycle of drama, I'm more so talking about people whose nervous system feels so familiar and comfortable in chaos that when things become peace and calm, they can't enjoy a vacation, they can't enjoy a day off, they can't enjoy just sitting in a room in silence because it's so foreign to them. It's so foreign to their nervous system, to their mind. And so their thoughts are racing, they're feeling anxiety, they're having flashbacks, they're causing conflict internally because they do not know how to be at peace. Now, this is nobody's fault. This is all of us to some degree or another suffer through things in childhood and in adulthood. But one of the things that you can do is start going to talk therapy to get to the root of when's the first time you felt this way? When's the first time you felt this way in your body? And what is your response? Is your response then, drinking a lot of alcohol? Is it doing a substance? Is it eating a lot of food to numb? And there's no shame to these things. It's just trying to understand, what do you do? What have you historically done? Because a lot of these things are habitually built up and will take years to heal from. And you can heal. Everything can get better. You are not a finite person. You are an infinitude of possibilities. There is so much healing that awaits you. But the first step you have to take is to ask the question of, what happened to me? Like, when's the first time this happened and how did I respond? When's the first time I dissociated? When's the first time I went numb? When's the first time I binge ate until I passed out because of some bullying incident or something that happened to me? And when you can get through to that point with a licensed professional, then you can build a plan to rewire your habits so that your nervous system can begin to understand that peace, calm, tranquility, safety is an asset. It's the place that you can thrive. It's the place that you can have the abundance that you're craving. But the first step is to talk to a licensed therapist so that they can walk you through the steps, because it can be incredibly jarring trying to do it on your own, just trying to read self-help books or just trying to journal about it. Like, these things are great and you definitely should. A great book about this is What Happened to You by Oprah Winfrey, and she co-authors it with a clinical psychologist. Also, Brene Brown's books, I think, are an excellent insight, because so often what keeps us from honestly answering the question of what happened to us and how we've coped is shame. It's the shame that we don't like to admit that something happened, or we can't even remember it because trauma causes memory issues. So all of this to say that if you find that you are surrounded by, or you are yourself addicted to cycles of pain, cycles of trauma, cycles of anxiety, I would really encourage you to try to find a therapist. But I also acknowledge that even in that, there's systemic barriers. Like, not everyone has access to healthcare. Therapy, even if you do have healthcare, can be incredibly expensive. Services like BetterHelp, which I have tried, make therapy a little bit more democratized and accessible. But even then, it's still an economic barrier for many. And so, yeah, I think that it's just it's something that is a much more complex issue than a one TikTok could get into. But I would love to start a conversation in the comments with people's own realization journeys, things that have helped them, things that have helped them heal, things that have helped them find their way back to peace. And I think that the most important thing to remember is that you're not alone. Like, you're not meant to heal alone, but also like figure out everything alone. Like, you're meant to be in community. People are meant to help you. You're meant to find your way back with the loving, nurturing support of people around you. But a lot of that be functioning involves like being able to be honest and take personal accountability and understand the ways that you might have harmed others, the ways you might have harmed yourself, and like without judgment, trying to get to the root of like, when did this happen? Why did this happen? Why did I act this way? When someone says this, why does it trigger me? If it triggers me, like, when's the first time I felt triggered by this? Was this something that came up a lot in my childhood? And when you can really get to the root of these things, you can then begin to notice them and change them, change the pattern. So, maybe usually like someone says an off-color comment to you at work, and it makes you feel like how you did at recess in elementary school when people would bully you, and your response is to come home and drink a whole bottle of wine. But now that you know where it started, you can catch yourself in that moment and think, okay, what's something that I can do in the more loving direction? What's something I can do to soothe myself, to soothe my nervous system that isn't going to be destructive to my health or to my body? And the most important thing is to like eliminate all shame, blame, and judgment, because healing, you can't heal if you like constantly point fingers at yourself and say it's your fault. The only way you can heal is to just lovingly accept what you are, what you've done, what's happened to you, and try to move forward in acceptance. One of my favorite quotes is, I believe it was popularized in Oprah's show. She had a clinical psychologist on many years ago, and he said that forgiveness is giving up the hope that the past could be any different. Forgiveness isn't getting revenge. It's not like you being the more magnanimous person. It doesn't mean that you don't feel pain anymore, whether you're forgiving yourself or others or the people that have harmed you or you for harming yourself. But forgiveness is accepting the past is what it was, and you have to be honest with yourself about exactly what happened and accept it 100%, radically accept it, because you can't move forward until you've accepted what's happened in the past. If you constantly are avoiding it, if you constantly are making excuses or trying to paint a different narrative that makes you feel like less accountable, less anxious. All these things are very natural trauma and coping responses, but they're not how you're going to get to that healing place. And again, the best way to do this is to work with a licensed therapist, to work with a mental health professional. But I do think that people also in your community also have a ton of knowledge and wisdom to share. And I would love if we could kind of crowdsource knowledge here in the comments, because I have been, totally guided in the right direction many times by people on TikTok. And I think that if we can guide each other, it's like that classic Rumi quote, which is that we're all just walking each other home. So I love you. I hope this was helpful. And if it wasn't, I'm sorry. If it was, great. And let's talk in the comments about how we can help guide each other home. I love you guys.